Hi, I'm Milo Denison.
And I'm Kev Bamboo, and this is Rip It Up.
On each episode, we ask the questions that are impacting creators around the world today.
Yeah, and on tonight's show, this is a special review of Rip It Up Season 1, where we're going to be going through previous episodes, covering the highs and the lows of Rip It Up's inaugural season, essentially. So, yeah, Milo, I mean, give us a general overview of Season 1. What did you think?
Yeah, what did we have? 11 episodes? 11 or 12?
I think it was 13 in 12 total with...
Counting our first one, which was just you and me?
Yeah, those guys. And then we had a couple of specials in between. And I think...
Oh, that's right, yeah.
Juanita was a two-parter, I think, something like that.
Yeah, that's it. So around there.
About 12 or 13.
Yeah,
good for a pilot season, I suppose.
I think so too. And I think my big one from the first series of this is the quality of the guests. Like, everybody was really fascinating to talk to and listen to. I mean, the musicians were really good. We had a poet who was brilliant. So I was just really impressed with the quality of the people.
Yeah, I really like the variety there as well, because it wasn't just always. I know we want to have mainly film-based people as well, but kind of drawing people from different areas of the creative industry was another great draw, I think, because you had, obviously, like you say, we had several people from directly within Hollywood, that came and did a show. We had, fantastic musicians. I mean, we can't really knock anyone that came on and performed. It's absolutely fantastic. And then, two or three absolutely brilliant spoken word artists as well, which, way back right near the beginning with Finn Hall, and who kind of kicked things off for us, really. And then, we had kind of Juanita a little bit later on, which I think was a really, really cracking show. But yeah, some of the lows and some of the highs and difficulties along the way that I think, most people would say, when you're doing podcasting or whatever this version of it, the video version of it is, or will become, there's always going to be some technical difficulties that pop in the way, the more media you add to things, I suppose. But
yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm curious because we were talking about the guests. So my question, how do you go about finding some of these guests?
Wow, sourcing guests. Yeah, I mean, it's a combination of things. I mean, you've got like a lot of times you've got some contacts that you already know, and people that I may not have even spoken to for crikey, 5, maybe 10 years, and their careers have moved on, massively since I knew them, and they were only just starting out in their creative journey. And yeah, just a matter of popping a message to them or an email, or if I happen to still have their contact, getting in touch and just reaching out to them and seeing if they want to be a part of the show. But also there are other guests as well that kind of started coming to us as well. Pretty early on, I started getting requests from people, which I was kind of taken aback a little bit by that, because we'd only really, we did this off the back of me appearing on Diary of an Unemployed, which is obviously what you put Rip It Up onto that as well, to host it as a podcast.
Yep.
And yeah, we developed from there. We'd not really done any real promotion as such for the show. We just said, let's just do this because, almost selfishly in some ways, because we wanted to just do it for our own personal development and, extending the podcasting and things like that. But yeah, we had other guests start coming to us, and I was getting emails coming from people said, oh yeah, no, I've seen your show, because of where I'd put it out to. And then they were like, oh yeah, I want to know, how do I get on the show? How do I appear? And I was like, yeah, I mean, as usual, we just started putting people in, and then some people that wanted to be on, couldn't, and they just, just because of life and things and the whole situation with COVID. But yeah, the show definitely evolved fairly quickly from especially our initial episode of just you and I discussing the art and the artist, which is what kicked it all off. And then we came into a more fully fleshed out show.
And it's interesting with the evolution too, because of course we were like, okay, we're going to do an episode every 2 weeks. And we had this kind of scheduled plan. And then you get life around that. And,
oh God, yeah.
The guest schedules, my schedule, your schedule, you try to coordinate all that together, and then just random stuff that happens in life that comes up and interferes. And it's just trying to get that scheduling down is probably one of the more interesting aspects of doing this show.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely, as kind of like a 1/2 man band kind of thing, it's definitely a very hard thing to, like, you can bash it. I mean, I think the thing is I'm quite conscious of trying to create a quality product that might be like, many steps above where we're actually at. But that's kind of like where I'm reaching towards every time. And it's like, I want this to be a good product. I want people to watch it and go, oh, what they're trying to deliver here is actually pretty damn good. Which I think that has been, in a self-assessment, I'd say that's pretty, it's doing that. But yeah, when you kind of, you like delivering that product, but you're kind of like, okay, right, I've got to do, all the sourcing of the guests, which I love doing all of it, but it's just the actual physical time. And like you say, when you've like, you're doing your own stuff anyway, and then it's like, then you've got your own stuff, and then our guests have got their own stuff, and fitting all that in. And it's easy to get people in and say, oh yeah, I'll schedule you in for that date or whatever. And then all of a sudden, because of the nature of both of our, kind of work, that can just be disrupted in the flip of a switch, because obviously, while we're doing this at the minute, we're not getting paid for it, which isn't the main thing. But if we were, then we could just say, we could maybe be a little bit more easier on other things that come in and go. So yeah, it is
exactly. It's like, one of us, we get hey, I got a paid gig for you. It's like paid gig or record an episode of Rip It Up.
Yeah. It's like, really love Rip It Up, but
exactly.
It's like the whole, I don't know if you've seen, like, there's like some, like, they're pretty good, like the adverts about people like buying a house or something, and they're like, oh yeah, we really love this place. It's lovely. The neighbors are great and everything. The next minute, partner comes, over the shoulder and just goes, oh, have you seen this place? And they're like, yeah, we didn't actually, we don't really get on with the neighbours that well, to be honest. And they're like convinced to go somewhere else, which I suppose that analogy, if you look at it, is similar with this. Like you say, you get a paid gig and you're not going to turn it down.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, kind of moving things on within this, and as we look forward to kind of further things within season 2 as well, we will be looking more to kind of trying to seal a few more things that, in terms of like sponsorship and getting other people on board that can kind of, help us like really develop the show and take it to the kind of the next step, really, because that's ultimately what we would like to do. But talking of next steps and next parts of the show, I would like to say we've got a set of kind of quick fire questions that we're going to put out. So quick fire questions. So favorite episode?
Rob Matsui. I'm an entertainment person. To listen to some of his stories about actually working on these films was just fantastic. What of it you could hear, anyways.
Yeah.
Like What's Eating Gilbert Grape was not a hugely expensive movie, as far as I know, to make in terms of its production, and the budget that I had to come up with the makeup design for Leonardo DiCaprio was not a lot of money either. But
that's interesting.
The demands of the makeup design, the prosthetic makeup, were kind of challenging in many ways.
I mean, it was great. But for me, I'm gonna say Emmeline Hartley, and I've said her name right. I've got her name right as well. But I think with that, it just seemed to have everything. I think the whole episode had everything, and I don't think I need to add any more to that.
Least favorite episode?
Oh, right. So this one for me personally, nothing to do with the actual show, but it was so Francesca Kirkpatrick, the other like entertainer from, I think, Texas, was she from? She was from the South anyway.
I think it was Georgia.
Was it? Oh, we're probably going to be like naming every state in the South. And she's like, no, I'm not from there.
I know exactly. It was definitely the South. I don't remember. I feel like it was Georgia, but I could be wrong as well.
But my reason was basically like just before that show, I had a massive anxiety attack, and I was just like, fuck. And I was like, I went on, and I was just like, I don't know, it just got me. But it was nothing to do with the actual content of the episode or the guest, just so that everyone's clear about that. But how about yourself?
I'm going to go the Eurovision episode because I had to watch Eurovision in order to participate in that episode. And for anyone listening who doesn't know what Eurovision is, it's awful.
But Milo really does love it. He secretly does love it. Okay, so easiest episode.
I've got to say Eurovision again for that, though, because it simply just involved watching TV. So we didn't really have to prepare questions. We didn't have to set anything up. It was just, I'm going to sit down and watch the show and pick my favorite performances.
Well, funnily enough, mine is also Eurovision as well. I just love the banality of Eurovision itself. So to then do an episode and talk about it, I'm like, yeah, cracking. Whilst I join you outside tonight at the Ahoy Arena, where inside 26 acts will be battling to become the musical legends of Europe or something.
Your badly drawn bamboos, what do you think? Hit or miss?
Hit. Definitely. I think I was impressed with how good they were actually. So even though it was to be bad, all the drawings were amazing, and I just thought it was a great way of involving both, viewers and also the guests too. But yeah, how about yourself?
Are we talking badly drawn bamboo still?
Yeah.
I'm going to go hit-ish as well. I think it was fun to see what some of the guests came up with. And I was really impressed with the quality of some of them. Like some people put some work into them, which was really well done.
I think that's what that got me. I was expecting loads of rubbish ones so I could just rip the hell out of them. Mm-hmm. And then they were just like, no, they were all absolutely brilliant artists. But I suppose when you've got creative people on, and
they're going to
I should not have expected shit drawings, basically.
Yep.
But so Ask an American, hit or miss?
I'm going to go hit-ish on that one as well. I was happy I was able to answer most of the questions. I was quite disappointed because one of the guests asked me some very specific Seattle-related questions, and I was like, I don't know. That
was Finn, I think, wasn't it?
I think that was Finn. Yeah, that was very.
Because he asked you about where was the first fuel.
Yeah, exactly.
Gas station.
First gas station.
Yeah,
like stuff like that. And I'm like, heck if I know.
3 things that Seattle gave the world first.
Yeah, that kind of stuff.
It'd be like asking somebody like, what year in the UK did they introduce a law of like bloody shooting an arrow across a market square or something? It's like, I don't know, 13, 12, just as a guess. To be fair, whenever you ask me a question about anything to do with the UK, I was just like, I don't know. Like,
yeah, I think about the Royals and stuff, and you're like, I don't know anything about the Royals.
I was like, it might be about this, but it might not as well. I know my reasoning for
Ask an American.
Ask an American. Yeah. So again, I think that was another good way of kind of including the guest and give them something to think about more than just themselves, because they know about themselves. But to actually give them some little bit of homework to do and bring that back to you. And again, it kind of just kept things flowing as well, I think. But yeah, I thought I'd go with a hit again. I think to have us both almost on the spot a little bit, maybe the drawings, it could be anything, they could do a massive caricature. Yourself with the Ask an American, you've got no idea what's coming. So it's a real intimidation point for ourselves, but I think that's probably a good thing in terms of entertainment for the show.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah, it gets the guests more engaged, so it's not just a question answer type session, and get some thinking. So, well, we did kind of mention there that I do occasionally turn it around and do an Ask a Brit. So let's turn the table right now, and I'm going to ask a Brit. Now, what is up with baked beans in this country? Like, why do British people love these fart-inducing things? I looked this up. The UK is the number one consumer of baked beans by a lot. Like, 400 to 500 million cans per year in this tiny little country. Like, the US isn't even on the top 10. The second closest is Australia at 60 million units per year. So think about that, like 400 to 500 million to 60 in the next is the next.
It's almost like a factor of 10 down, isn't it? Or a power of 10 down. Yeah. And that's probably because there's a lot of expats in Australia anyway.
There probably are. Yeah, it's all the Brits that move down there eating them.
They're like, oh yeah, we'll take some shipments of baked beans. To be honest, Milo, I really do not know. It's another one I do not know, purely because to me, tinned baked beans, I totally disgusting. I hate them. So I'm in the minority in the UK.
You definitely are.
I am literally, they are the devil's work. They are, to me, they're awful. I don't like them. I don't like the sweet juice that's with them. I don't particularly like the texture of the bean that's in them because this is particularly in a tin. So I'm like a baked bean snob. I'd make my own baked beans. And I'd get a mixture of beans and stuff and make them a bit spicier and things, and they'd be nothing like that comes out of a can. I'm sure there are versions
like the Heinz canned baked beans.
And people are just mad for them. And even whether it's the Heinz ones or it's just like you used to be able to. I mean, I don't think you can now, but you could go into a store in the UK, much that our kind of obsession with it is so big. You could get like 5p, 2p beans, or like, US wise, under 10 cents for a can of baked beans. And I thought, how can they do that? But obviously the sheer volumes, people shipping, whether the cans were coming from elsewhere or whatever, because of the sheer volumes that we just eat, it's like people must be eating like about 20 tins a day, like Popeye style.
That kind of volume for a country this small.
Down. Yeah. It's incredible. And
like beans on toast, beans with breakfast, beans with dip.
Yeah, just put some beans on it, it'll be fine. Yeah. And my other pet hate, without going on too much about beans, is like the whole over toast. To me, toast should be crunchy, buttery, crunchy, just deliciousness. There shouldn't be like this sauce that just swamps it and then makes it all soggy and. Oh God! No, that's just like, just do not. Like, I'm out of there. Like, if that sauce even touch, I wouldn't be having beans anyway. But if they're on my plate, if it touches that toast, then nah, in the bin. It's gonna. But yeah, the obsession with beans. I don't know where and what falls as to why it became so popular. Obviously, it's linked to the full English breakfast as a tradition, but I don't know. I don't know why people are so into them, because to me they're just shit.
Yeah.
I would not choose it. I would not be like, oh yeah, I'm out somewhere for breakfast. I wouldn't go, yeah, I want beans with that, because it's just not happening.
Yeah.
And so I mean, and also I've got this, instead it's badly drawn bamboo, but this time it's a badly drawn Denison. Mm-hmm. So I've got a picture for you.
Okay, let's see it. Oh yeah, I have to be honest, that's actually much better than I thought it was going to be. Very good indeed.
Cheers, man. It's good to know, but I mean, it's supposed to be bad. What would you rate it?
So a high rating is bad and a low rating is good, right?
Yeah, I've still not figured this one out.
So I'm going to go 4 out of 5, 3.5. I'm going to give you a half star or half rating,
Okay.
3.5. So that's reasonably good.
Okay. Yeah. I'll take that. Yeah, I suppose.
Good job.
Well, that's cool. No worries, man. Well, I reckon we should move on to another set of quick fire questions.
Quick fire questions. Okay.
Into the season, yeah. Okay, so quick fire questions. So, strangest moment.
So my strangest moment was actually outside of this podcast, and I was doing another one that I do that's called the 80s and 90s Uncensored. And my friend on that podcast used this podcast against me. So you and I had our first episode, which was artist versus the artist, right? And like, can we differentiate? And we were doing an episode on Michael Jackson and Prince on that. And I basically was making pedophile jokes when it came to Michael Jackson. And he was like, well, your own podcast was all about separating the art from the artist.
Oh, nice
and
one.
I was like, you used
Jamie.
You used it against me.
For me, this one, I would say it was during Rod Matsui episode, which obviously threw up some kind of difficult times anyway, just because of the nature of the whole setup. But I think it was he started a tutorial of sorts as to how he would go about doing some of his special effects makeup. So because of the nature of Rod and it being quite a long show, I thought it'd last for ages. And I was like, right, I'm just going to mic off, camera off. I'm going to dash to the loo because I needed to go. So I was like, right, I'll go, and I'll be fine because he'll still be talking about it and he'll be at length. So I comes back and then I just hears him as I put my headphones in, I hear him going, oh, so is there any more questions? And you just say, no, I don't think so. And I'm thinking, oh shit, the show's going to wrap up and I'm still kind of like on the toilet going.
I remember that.
It's so strange. And then I came in and I was just like, right, yeah. And I just managed to find our point. And I was like, oh, right, yeah. So next we've got, but it was just like, another like 30 seconds on the loo. And yeah, it could have been like, show's over. Milo's like, oh, I've had enough, I'm off. And then Rod had be just left in the room like, hey man, what's going on? It's just like,
well, I think you did message that you were going, right?
I did, yeah.
Okay.
I think I put in the chat. Yeah, it was just odd that as I may have misheard it, but it was just like, I think it was with Rod saying, oh, is that it? Is there anything else? And then you was like, oh no, I don't think so. I was like, what? It's like, no, we've got like, there was still like about 2/3 of the show to go or something crazy like that. But yeah, so next quick fire.
All right. Best guest performance.
For me, I'll go with Hattie. I think Hattie Whitehead, which was probably one of our most recent in terms of one of the latter end of season 1. I think it was just beautiful. I mean, the topic and the music as well. I would also probably bounce a little back to Juanita Ray as well for the spoken word. But both performances. But I think Hattie just edges it because it was top draw performance. I think.
I stand here alone, singing songs about somebody I don't know. Though the music moves right through my lips, there's nothing in my soul. Is this the way I'll go? I stand here alone, making plans about a future unknown. Though there's blood that's running through my veins, my heart's an empty shell. Is this the way I'll go?
Yeah, I don't want to fault any of the performances because they were all so good. But I'm going to go Hattie as well. It was just beautiful music. And of course, I went and saw her in concert after that. So bonus for having seen her live.
Definitely big bonus points. Okay, so funniest or bizarre moment.
So I'm going to go funniest, which was your complete inability to pronounce Emmeline Hartley.
I knew that was going to come. I do know what, there was such a block there. I still put it down to me knowing her having a previous stage name.
Mm-hmm.
And so I got locked in Emmeline Kelly, I think I kept calling her. And then it wasn't just the surname, which I then managed to get right. It was then I didn't know how to pronounce her first name, even though I'd been told it numerous times. Emmeline Kelly. Fuck's sake. By actor Emmeline Kelly. Do that again.
Yeah, and she actually at one point literally got out of her chair and just kind of walked away from the screen.
she was gone. We nearly, literally, it was the first time we nearly lost our guest. So, but I had a feeling that was going to come up. I didn't choose that one. For me, the funniest was actually, and this was Juanita Ray Part 2, and it was when we seemingly passed each other a glass of water. And there's like, it's in the edit, but there was no edit there. It wasn't rehearsed. It was just pure TV magic. It was just like, there's me, and bang on timing.
Setting.
And it was, when I watched back the initial draft of it, and I was just like, oh, that's mad. And so I was like, bump.
Nice. Good
literally, I'd passed you a glass of water through the TV. So.
Excellent. Bravest guest then?
Yeah, that's an easy one for me. I'm going to say that was Josh Leverton, who came on and spoke about kind of depression and anxiety, and actually totally admitted that, during the show that he kind of like he struggles with anything live and has to really prepare for it. So that was, there's not much more to on that. I think massive kudos to Josh.
Moments where there might be nerves, I think you can at least sort of focus back to what it is that you've been practicing over all that time. Whereas if you're there speaking to so many people just as yourself, there's a lot more sort of improvisation, even just in just a standard conversation. Those examples that were mentioned with other people that have had performance, I think like of some description, especially the best man speech, they're all things that I'd be terrified of, in all honesty. I think it is. It's just whether you're having to sort of think up what you're going to be saying on the spot. I mean, you can go so far with certain things like speeches as to how much is practiced and rehearsed. But when you think about it, a lot of people will have had their first sort of presentation or sort of speech that they've had to give during sort of like school time. When you look at like school assemblies and that kind of thing. I mean, I'm only sort of speaking from my own experience at my school, but I imagine it's pretty much the norm for just about anywhere. You'll have classes that'll take it in turns to sort of give their speech or their presentation for whatever the school assembly is in that time. And I think that's the first place where a lot of people would sort of think, oh, wow, this is actually quite daunting.
I agree. It was kind of a toss-up between Josh and Hattie Whitehead, because she was talking about dealing with grief and how she deals with it. But I went Josh as well, just because I just thought it was really great of him to be open to talking about it.
Yeah, and I think in the moment as well, because although there's, like you say, there's no kind of competition at all about what's worse, what's bad. I think with Hattie had the time of an event, in her life to reflect and absorb on and be probably better placed to talk about it. So it was likely an easier conversation.
Yeah.
Whereas I feel with Josh, that might have been a little bit more of a difficult conversation, because he may well have been, struggling at that very time whilst we were recording. So
yeah, I think so.
Big guns to Josh, and he was a great guest as well. Anyway,
yeah, great musician.
So. Most difficult episode. I have a feeling I know what you're going to say.
You think I'm going to go with Rod Matsui's to edit?
Well, no, just most difficult episode. Anyway, yeah.
So it kept cutting out. His volume would drop so you could barely hear him. He'd be talking, you couldn't hear anything he was saying. I think he dropped off at a couple points, if I remember correctly. I don't remember if he did or not.
Yeah.
But it was just that audio quality was such a pain. And you know, and he had such interesting things he was saying.
Yeah,
and I'm like, I'm trying to hear him. And it's like, I can't understand what you're saying. And in the back of my head during that whole episode, I'm like, this is going to be so difficult to edit. This is going to be so difficult to edit.
Well, I'm in exactly the same camp. And it was, again, it was down purely just to the latency and the connection there.
Early on, that was available on television. Sometimes that was on PBS, Living Dead. I noticed there are some stations.
Again, absolutely amazing guest, and it was no real fault of his own, but it was difficult. You know, communication is all about obviously things being processed clearly or visually. Obviously, we didn't have the visual element anyway, so we were relying purely on the audio. And yeah, I mean, yeah, it was tough in that respect. But we'll probably talk about that episode a little bit later.
Yeah,
in this episode.
Yeah.
But talking about difficulties and things like that, we're going to move on to kind of it's more about Rip It Up on the whole and how kind of the show, you know, because our main thing for the show was obviously to bring creative people on and talk about different, topics and some difficult topics at times. And we covered a good bunch of stuff, but we also, that was our main thing. Well, for me, I would say it was one of our main things in terms of for our viewers as well, to kind of bring, wider topical discussion to more people. And I think we did achieve that because we had a lot of public response that came back that was, that generally was pretty sensible in their, putting things out to the public can always be difficult because you can get a lot of silly responses or you can get, trolls and things like that. But in the main, most people kind of took on the subjects and kind of approached them in the right way and gave their opinion or experience of those things. So, yeah, what do you think about that kind of? That, I suppose it's part of the evolution of the show, really, because it didn't initially start out with that. But
yeah, I was really impressed about some of the thought that people put into into their answers, because often when I get like, hey, here's can you answer these quick questions online? And I'm like, whatever, I might be pretty short with my answers.
Yeah.
But there were a few on there that were really well thought out and quite impressive. So I was really impressed. And especially because some of them, they didn't have a lot of notice. You put the questions out pretty shortly before we recorded the episode. So
yeah, sometimes there was only there was a week at max. Sometimes, I mean, sometimes I tried to get it out a bit earlier, but you'd have a week, maybe 7 days, 6-7 days.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, we got, we tended to get a pretty decent response rate in Definitely. That short time frame, as well as some, some in-depth answers. But also the other bit I want to talk about is because obviously during the kind of show, over the episodes, we obviously we donated, a bunch of trees, obviously being kind of climate aware and things like that, which again wasn't something that we initially set out to do, but as the show evolved, there seemed to be an importance of, if we're using electricity, we're using devices for recording, probably is a little bit, conscious to be looking at something that can class ourselves as being green or carbon neutral or whatever. And yeah, I suppose want to get your thoughts on that.
One things I like about a lot of creatives is that they tend to be more environmentally conscious. At least I think so. Obviously there's exceptions to every rule, right? But in general, it seems like it. And so that is kind of a nice thing. Yeah, I mean, of course we're going to use power to do this call. It's like people that are harping on, environmentalist has to take a plane somewhere to talk about something which is bad for the environment. Well, yeah, it is, right? I mean, you're not going to not be able to consume any waste or have any waste. You're not going to be able to have, consume no electricity and, that kind of stuff. So there is an aspect. It's just being aware of it and trying to reduce it and,
Absolutely.
Using it in the right areas. So we obviously, it's one of those things, could do more, could do less, but at least we are aware and do something, which is better than nothing.
And I think that the fact that we are consciously aware of what we're doing or the materials that we're using or how we can kind of offset that is, I think there's not masses more as individuals that we can do. We could probably do more,
of course,
if we really, really thought about it. Mm-hmm. But just to go out and be aware of it and actually be doing something initially is a start. And I think for the duration, I think for season 1, I think we donated about 50 trees altogether. So basically works out roughly around about 4 a show. So, I think we've more than covered our kind of our carbon, our carbon offset or whatever, or carbon credits or whatever the term people want to use. But yeah, we also talked a lot of time about trees. Cheese, which the two did get
cheese and trees.
From time to time, but yeah, we did talk about cheese. That was a definite featured segment on the show. But yeah, I was just really more conscious about how we kind of involved people, because we could make a podcast and it'd be very, very insular, and we can both talk about stuff and then that's it, and post it online and that's it, and not really even have to. Obviously, you want viewers and you want people to listen and you want them to say, oh, yeah, that was good. But I just felt as this evolved, the more we, thought about involving the public as well, like you would on say, a radio show or a TV show or like a chat show. I think those ways of bringing them into it and making them aware of what we were doing helped massively. I think so anyway. I could be totally wrong with that, but I think it was the right move to make in kind of evolving and, making the show more 3-dimensional. I think that's where I'm kind of coming from my point of view.
It also helps because sometimes we did get pretty serious. We were talking about depression. We were talking about, death in family, that kind of stuff. So it's a nice break as well from some of the more serious topics that we had, and being able to take a breath and be like, okay, now let's just have a quick fun moment of just talking about something silly.
Yeah, I think it was vital to include those kind of, more, lighter moments, especially, as you say, with the cheese topic. And then, like we've just previously mentioned, the badly drawn bamboo and the African American, because, like you say, when you're getting so in depth, we don't want to just be kind of bringing people down to a really low place, because, viewers listening or watching, they may well have had enough by 10 minutes anyway, just listening to us. Yeah. So to actually, if they are still on board after like kind of 10, 20 minutes, obviously the topic sometimes just needs to take a step back a second. And then also factoring in, having the guests perform for us as well, which is another one which helps kind of keep our viewers entertained as well, and ourselves. We want to enjoy what we're creating, and I think it's key that we have those elements in there. So I reckon we go on to another set of quickfire questions. All
right, let's do it. Hardest guest to source, Kev.
Okay, so for me, hardest guest to source. Well, the thing is Hattie Whitehead actually took a while to book in, because that was a good 4 or 5 months, I think, because I'd made the initial contact. She replied and said yes, and then, like I said, life things happened for a bit, and then she wasn't available. Both of us weren't available, and I think at that point we was kind of getting into the summer. It was really right in the summer then, and then eventually I got her in kind of whatever it was, early October, I think. So we had Hattie was difficult to book in, but I do think the hardest guest for me to source was Rod Matsui. And it was once I'd got him and got him on board, but there was lots of prep work and workarounds. And this was prior to recording, because I had a huge, 2 huge voice calls with Rod just kind of explaining him the whole setup and the, because he was like, oh, can I just ring you? And then we do it like that. And I was like, no, because the format that we record on won't really allow us to kind of do that, because he didn't have Zoom. So he had to have Zoom, and so it was difficult in that. But again, I'm kind of really glad that I put that amount of effort in, because, Rod's our most viewed, most watched and most viewed and listened to episode. So it was worth the time and effort. But boy, that was tough from my point of view. So obviously you don't do guest sourcing or preparation, but for you, what was your hardest episode to edit?
Yeah, I think I've already basically answered that question. Let's just continue the Rod Matsui.
Yeah, sorry, Rod, for a second, because we think you're an absolutely cracking guy. We absolutely love you. You're amazing. You've had a fantastic career, and then here we are going, oh, you know what, that Rod guy is really, really tough. Sorry, Rod Matsui. You're amazing.
It's true. Well, that's the thing. We really enjoyed talking to you. We also, mentioned that, but yeah, due to that quality, it made it so hard to edit. And I added captions for the video, which was also really difficult to do, but I felt like they needed, because it did cut out. And, I tried to clean it up as best as I could, but still wanted to make sure that if anybody's watching it, that they know fully what was said. So doing the captions took a really long time, and then just getting everything to sync correctly. I was going
to say, I bet synchronization was a real big one. Yeah.
Yep. All right. Your fave badly drawn bamboo.
Yeah, fave badly drawn bamboo. That's kind of tough, because as we mentioned just earlier, that there were some really, really good ones. And there was a few, there's a few rubbish ones. I've just presented the probably the most badly drawn bamboo, which isn't of me, but it's of you. But I would say it was probably, when we had like the viewer submissions, and we had a little flash gallery come up, and there was 4 or 5 there that were submitted, I think. And there was one from Finn, actually, who had been an early guest. He did like a really good like painted version. I think that was like a digitally painted one as well. So yeah, when I saw it, I was like, oh, he's like actually painted it. And then it's like, no, it's a digital painting. And I was just impressed by what you can do. I mean, I sound like some old dude, and I'm just like, oh wow, you can do that on a digital thing and make it look like it's freaking oil paint or acrylic or whatever. But yeah, he did a really good one. And then there was Javier Alex. She sent him one which was just a sketch of me, and it was just like a normal ink outline sketch. I think I'm holding a fish. I've just got this scrag hair, and I'm kind of triangle shaped, which is fairly accurate for my frame. And I was like, oh yeah, I really like that, because you can imagine, when you have these fleets of imagination. And I thought, oh yeah, that'd look really good as like it was like a basic comic strip, in a paper or online or whatever. And I was like, 3 like kind of like badly drawn bamboo goes fishing or something. I just really liked it. It was simplistic, but it actually showed so much of me. And I think that's why I liked it. It was actually quite characterful in its simplicity. But what about yourself? Did you have one that you was?
Yeah, like the first one that popped into my head is Emmeline's, because I thought she did a really good job on it, and you gave her a very low rating. I think she put a decent amount of effort, because I remember watching her expression when you rated it, and she looked genuinely disappointed. I was like, get a better rating.
Are you serious?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah,
I thought it was quite good.
It does. It was a pen drawn one.
I'm trying to remember. Yeah, what that one looked like, because
it was so.
Escaped me.
Yeah, so it was basically just pen on paper, and you looked super evil in it. Maybe that's why you didn't like it.
It's weird how the brain can just like go, oh yeah, I didn't remember that one. I'm really trying to visualize that one, because I can remember Gabe's.
Yeah, Gabe's was good too.
Yeah, I like that. That was
Yeah,
that
like
was really
Gabe was the
very,
other one I was actually thinking of as well. But I feel
it's
like
very impressionist.
I need to give
and I
some.
remember Hattie's because that was like the bio tapestry type one.
Yep.
The third. And
Yeah.
so I'm just trying to think of.
But I gotta go Emmeline because she seemed disappointed in the rating that you gave her. So I need to give her some credit for her drawing.
Fair enough. No, yeah. I mean, there were some great ones. As I say, there wasn't really any actual bad ones, which makes the segment even more hilarious because it's like, yeah, the badly drawn bamboo, but none of them are bad. They're all like ace. Kind of ironic. So yeah, talking of like kind of our mini segment. So favorite Ask an American question.
I'm going to bring up Rod again, just because we were talking. We got an interesting conversation about whether or not Bigfoot and the Loch Ness monster exist, which was just kind of a fun tangent that I think we went off onto in regards to that one.
And that's been an ongoing thing on social media since, because obviously those guys are kind of all kind of like connected now, and Rod often tags us in some Loch Ness based thing or Bigfoot based thing, which is great because actually there was something. I think recently there was a sea dragon, which is a real thing that was discovered not far from where I'm originally from. So I took a perfect opportunity to tag Rod in there myself and say, "Hey, Rod, this is actually a real living thing that was found in my area." And it's like some sea dragon. Like it's called like an Ichthyosaurus or something like that.
Ichthyosaurus.
Which is, yeah, I know. I just thought about, God, that dude must have been very irritated. But mine is, reading each other's minds, great minds or whatever. Mine is also, favorite Ask an American question was with Rod, and it was when he asked you if you believe in Bigfoot, and you kind of basically you totally, kind of like face palmed him in a sense because you just went nope. It's like nope.
What do you think about Bigfoot and the Loch Ness monster?
But then you did go on to say that there's a friend or something that you got that's like a proper squatcher.
Yeah,
and they go out and it's, but definitely for me that was the standout one in the Ask Americans, which came from an American as well, which was
also interesting.
Also interesting. So yeah, and then I kind of threw for our quickfire questions as well. I also threw one out to the public quickly to see whether they would actually, what they would come back with to ask us, and they asked us, "Have you ever used an outdoor loo, an outdoor toilet?"
Of course, numerous times.
But like a proper one,
like the wooden one with the hole in the ground kind of thing.
Oh yeah.
I've used one of those. Yeah. Hiking in the US, a lot of hiking trails are that way, or I don't know in the US, but in Washington State. So there's in the Cascades, there's hiking trails, and often at like the parking spot or something, they will have one of those built, and it's literally just you can all the way down to the ground, or camping sites will have that because they don't want people pooping and peeing in the woods.
Well, yeah, and they don't want people kind of like, finding a random bin or something to kind of drop on him. But so it makes sense. For me, when I was younger, in the house that I grew up in, the first house that I grew up in, the actual loo was outside, so it was like a brick built shed that you had to go out to. So the winter months were incredibly tough. It was just like you kind of stood at the edge of the door, like, right, I need a shit. But it's frosty, the ground's slippery, everything. If you're caught short, that's an outside loo is not necessarily your best option. So growing up, when I was younger, and then also currently my sister, she has a loo with a view, and it's known as the Longford Long Drop. So kind of a little bit like what you're talking about. It's a wooden built with a kind of corrugated roof, a bit like so basically like a tramping toilet or a hiker's toilet. There is an explanation for that though, because they're like converting a barn, and so they've had it built for when they get builders in and go on to the more serious work. So instead of giving them like a crappy plastic portaloo, they've actually got a proper sawdust purpose built kind of place to go in and do the business. So yeah, 2 for me, so I think I get bonus points for present day. And I mean, come on, childhood, having
a separate one in a home that you were living in definitely is the winning answer there.
My mind is like, what was Britain in like kind of like late 1980?
Did you have windows on your homes?
No. But it's just a hole in the wall.
Hole in the wall, exactly.
Windows, hole in the wall, hole in the ground.
Fancy.
What more can I say?
That's pretty
okay. So, enough about it. Enough about my childhood toilet habits. So, a kind of final one of our quickfire. So, episode where you learned the most.
So that one was hard because I learned something different in each episode from different people. So I want to say everyone, but I'm going to go with our canceling Dr. Seuss episode with Juanita, just because, I mean, we had to break it down into 2 episodes. It went that long because of all the different things that we talked about, which I thought just was really interesting. And there were a lot of really good public response answers in that one as well. So just some of the responses of what people were saying and everything in regards to, canceling, not canceling, whether we should do stuff like that. So it was really interesting discussion. And she brought up interesting points that I hadn't really thought about, which I thought was really nice.
It's 2021, and I think we have a greater responsibility in terms of the racial narratives. It's really important that we, how do I say this? Especially for material that is in schools and with children, because children need to see themselves, and especially for Black children, when most of the narrative has said you're less than, then it needs to change, because children are very much affected by it today, up to now. So I'm not sure I have a definitive view on whether cancel culture could kill creativity.
Yeah, I think, and interestingly in that show, she was only booked for kind of like 45, 50 minutes because she had a really tight time schedule. Obviously, as the episode was going on, at one point we stopped it to say, all right, we're going to have to wrap this up pretty quickly and get it done. And she's like, no, it's fine. And then that's why we ended up kind of, I think, actual full talking time was like 3 hours pre-edit.
Yeah, a long time.
Yeah. 2.5, 3 hours, I think, which was our longest. But yeah, absolutely, it was the same for me. Reflectively, there were other episodes, as I say, where I learned a lot from like the Rod one, with some fascinating insights. Also, just learning things about other people across other topics as well, and their own personal battles and involvement in those. But certainly, yeah, the Dr. Seuss one with Juanita. Just because, I think purely with the guest, perfect fit for the episode. Which interestingly, she was like, I don't think pre-show when I was chatting to her beforehand, she was like, I don't think I've got, anything to say really. I don't think I'd be the right person to have on. And I was like, well, I obviously convinced her to be on the show. And as it turned out, and I think she discovered herself that she actually had more to say about it, and rightly so, quite aptly. Anyone would say, yeah, that's totally the right guest you should have had on. She lived in South Africa for a number of years, during apartheid and things. It's like, if there was ever going to be a guest to talk about Dr. Seuss and whether, especially like the racism elements and like including children and things, she's a teacher, an educator, she's from an Indian, South African background. So it was the perfect guest. And
absolutely.
as it turned out, we both learned a lot from it. And I certainly did, especially more on kind of some of the things that she came up with, regards to kind of, that you don't always think of, because I suppose rightfully or wrongfully, being a white guy and being privileged, so to speak, unfortunately, we don't often think about those things. Not that we intend to, but it's just because they're not as part of our own upbringing. So when someone, and I think that's probably why that episode was important, because it gave people like us a chance to listen to someone and actually say, you know what, this is how it feels to be like this, and this might be the reason why, the Dr. Seuss company decided to make that decision, not just because there was pressure from cancel culture, so to speak, but because they were like, actually, today we need to move with the times and actually be more, appreciative to modern values. And I think that would be my final one on that. But yeah, definitely learned a lot, as like you say. So
yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, let's wrap up this episode of season 1 review. Any final thoughts, Kev?
Yeah, I mean, I really enjoyed kind of doing this season. I was kind of, I had no real expectations when we started out. All I had was kind of like, oh, okay, we're going to do this show. It's kind of going to be a little bit selfish on our own parts because we're doing it for a little bit of own self-development and, just putting it out there. Never really expected it to evolve in the way that it did, but I think that naturally just came about as like, the little segments and things that my mind, as things came up, I was like, oh yeah, we could probably, chuck that in. And yeah, I really like that. And I really, again, the guests, I know I source the guests, so it's a little bit kind of like self-indulgent, but you never know exactly how the guests are going to be, 100%. And they all delivered, they all delivered brilliantly. I can't even think of one episode where I'd go, yeah, I wouldn't have them on again, or I wouldn't or they were poor. Everybody delivered, and they all seemed to fit as well, for the topic that they were on. And even if like in the early ones, because I wasn't really matching people to the topics initially. It was just, oh yeah, got a topic, got a guest. If they know a bit about it, then that's fine. Because I think like in the Claire Shaw one, I think that was about changing your name, and none of us had any experience of changing that, but there was still a lot of opinion and a lot to say about it. And Claire came up with actually some really insightful words and thoughts. So, but yeah, as it evolved, everyone kind of did match everything really well. And I was just impressed with that. And again, I think like you mentioned earlier, I was impressed with the contributors from our viewers as well, with the kind of detail of their responses, which all of that combined, just would not have been able to make the show really, because it'd just be you and I talking. And I would imagine just you and I doing that over a period of time, especially as like an entertainment-based show, would probably get a little bit kind of more taxing for viewers as well as for individuals. So I think the breakdown of the whole show and that show evolution for season 1, for me, I think was, I really enjoyed season 1. So, and I can't wait for more of what's to come as well. But yeah, how about yourself?
Yeah, obviously, I totally agree with everything you said. And I think the fact that you and I worked really well together, because we didn't really know each other prior to doing this. We did the interview on the other podcast, and that was pretty much it. And you were like, hey, I got this idea. You want to do it? And I'm like, yeah, absolutely.
And that was very much obviously like a you to me thing on
exactly.
that podcast, because it wasn't like a working relationship.
No, exactly.
It was. But yeah, sorry.
Yeah, well, that was it. Exactly. I mean, you were a guest on that one, and I, basically just kind of a QA type thing. And then when you reached out to me about doing this, and at first I was a little hesitant. I'm like, well, 1, do I have time? But 2, like, I don't really know him. And,
who is this dude? Just kind of like pestering me. So.
Well, and the thing too, like when you work with people, it's like, divvying up, am I going to get stuck doing most of the work, or, how's that going to work out? And so I think the way we divvied up who does what is just works perfectly. Like, I don't think either of us have ever felt like we're doing more than the other is in any way.
And I think we identified that pretty quickly as well.
Yeah.
It was like, oh yeah, like naturally you just was like, oh well, I don't mind doing the edit. I was like, well, I can go ahead and source guests, and I've got plenty of people to find.
Yeah.
So and it's never felt. We know it's difficult at both ends. That's just the nature of this kind of work and industry. Even if we were both doing it as a job, being a researcher or preparation of guests and things like that, they're all difficult. Editing's bloody difficult, and I totally know that just from just editing individual images in photography can be take ages sometimes, depending on the content. So but I've never felt like it's, when I'm doing it, I've never felt like, oh shit, I've got to do that. We all have difficult days and things, but I mean, in the main, I've been like, really looking forward to kind of getting this next batch of guests, or getting that, having the chat with a guest, pre-show, and then getting them on and doing all, going through the question sets and making sure everything's kind of okay, and just being like, because there's that, there's the scripting element of things as well. Because if that was written really
for each one, and so that takes time and stuff too.
If that was written really poorly, now we've got a kind of a more of a structure. It's a lot easier to write that script because I can just replace certain things in there and then make them specific to individual topic. But it's still got to be written relatively well, because obviously our show isn't fully scripted in the sense, there's a lot of ad-libbing, there's a lot of improv that's there, but you still need that guidance to help your show flow. And I think most of the time, or near enough, as the show's evolved, that is, and again, I think that's testament one to yourself and me as well, where more or less straight away, the kind of the bounce off and the working relationship kind of just worked, and I suppose that's probably the element of luck that you need in everything, because we could have been absolute, well, we are two absolute douches, but I mean, but there's that.
But not in the wrong way, like,
but in a good douchey kind of way, it's like,
more we acknowledge it type way.
And we can, and I think it helps that we can both take fun, one out of each other and of ourselves combined, and allowing others to take the mick out of us. And I think that it smooths everything out as well when things get either serious. But no, it's never difficult. And like you said, from the off, initially me, kind of continuing our communication after the pod episode to like kind of go, this could work. And I think, like I say, today it has and does work. So it's more about now, again, like I mentioned earlier, kind of taking it to the next step of the pod, which hopefully that is going to come in season 2.
So speaking of season 2, what's the plan with season 2? Any guests lined up? What do we got?
Yeah, I mean, season 2 is looking to be a cracker already, because, as I said, we've already got people that are coming to us more now. We've also got a bit of news coming on the front about possibility of sponsors as well. So that's another notch there to tick off in the kind of season 2 development team, which is, the rest of them are somewhere else. Working away, my season 2 elves somewhere. But in terms of guests, no, we've got 3 guests already confirmed for the start of season 2. We've got Seth Burkett, who is an author and used to be a pro footballer or soccer player. And he's got a really interesting story about his time in Brazil. Yeah, and then we've got another Hollywood guy, Pat Cardy, who worked on the Poltergeist and has also worked alongside Kurt Russell when they were both child actors. Right. So that guy's going to be really interesting, I'm sure. And Marvin, and he is involved in things like digital assets, but he's working on like the creative side of things and how that kind of melds itself into the film industry and creative processes with things like they're called NFTs, which are kind of they're like a tokenized version, and you can basically make anything tokenized. And he's going to talk more to us about that, about how you can filter that into creative processes and things like that. So 3 very different guests, you know, an author, a Hollywood actor, and digital creative asset kind of guy. You know, I can't even think of the words for it at the minute, but yeah, a really interesting set just to kick off season 2 with as well. So
there you go, audience. So stay tuned for season 2, and we'll see you then.
Absolutely. Cheers.